This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Hello, and before we get started with this episode of Cooking with Grief, we've got to quickly shill you some product, as we've long wanted to, but now someone's finally going to give us money to do it. Just out of interest, we've been friends a long time. How hairy are your balls?
Oh, it's an absolute nightmare, mate.
Oh.
A thick, luscious carpet. It's like a shampoo advert down there.
I hate you. I hate this. And yet, it is also a perfect segue into our lovely, glorious sponsors, manscaped.com. Now, if you go there and use the promo code BIGHEADS, you'll get 20% off and free shipping. And you might be wondering what Manscaped sells because you haven't taken into account the last 50 seconds of this conversation. And I will tell you that they sell grooming products for below the belt. So, for example, Chris, you'll be, from the sounds of it, very interested to learn about the Lawnmower 2.0.
I am. Tell me more.
Twice as good as the previous lawnmower, with skin-safe technology to protect your wrinkly ballsack from getting nicked. Specifically yours.
Good. I'm glad.
And after you've done that with your new smooth nads, you douse them in some crop preserver anti-chafing ball deodorant.
You know what? I might do that.
And if you want to do that, dear listener, then remember, use the promo code BIGHEADS, that's BIGHEADS, all one word, for 20% off and free shipping if you go to manscaped.com. So remember, BIGHEADS, 20% off, free shipping, manscaped.com.
Chris and I thank you, and your balls will also thank you.
And our balls thank you too.
On with the show. Hello, and welcome to episode 33 of Cooking with Grief, the fortnightly foray into spurious science, noteworthy news, and half-research history. I'm Chris, body like a raw potato with a personality to match, and joining me, as ever on this edited cry for help, is the author of Ham-Fisted and other porcine love stories. It's Chris.
Heather, weirdly yesterday I was driving and for some reason the phrase ham-fisted, or ham-handed was in my head. And then I was imagining what it'd be like to actually have hams for hands. So that was weird. It's like you're in my head. I think that's a sign we've been doing this too long.
You know, you went with an edible glove. I went with fisting a pig.
Yes, I see that. I'm not going to comment on that.
Nah, that's for the best. Otherwise, apart from being obsessed with ham hands, are you well?
Yes. Well, physically. Emotionally, mentally, probably less so, considering I spend my time thinking about what it'd be like to have hands instead of hands.
Do you think, would the ham regenerate? Like, would you get, say, like, a whole ham hock for the week, and then you get your ham hand back?
I don't know. I didn't think about it that much. I was just thinking, like, just immediate, like, imagine trying to drive hands instead of hands. Like, it'd be so difficult.
Shaking hands would be weird.
Shaking hands.
Vilified by the Jewish community.
Yes, exactly. So that wouldn't go down well. And, you know, when people would just talk about me as if I was some, unsubtle metaphor.
They'd probably accuse you of being a Tory. That's topical.
So, how are you?
Yeah, fine.
That was quick.
No weird meat-based fantasies.
I didn't say it was a fantasy.
Alright, nightmares then.
If anything, it's a nightmare.
Just ponderances then.
Yes, exactly. And don't lie. I know you well enough to know you've been having weird thoughts. There's no way you've gone a week and not had any bizarre, I wonder what it'd be like if I had Spitfires instead of toes.
What if my legs were made out of, I'm trying to think of any other meat other than ham now.
Beef.
Yeah, corned beef. But like in the sort of gelatinous block that when it comes just out of the...
Gelatinous block, yeah. Oh, that wouldn't give you much structural support at all. Anyway, what is this podcast about?
Classic Cooking with Grief small talk there. Here's how the podcast works. Each of us two Chris's share a couple of stories, historical points of interest, or eye-grabbing news with each other, and by the process of modern recording equipment, you, the silent, judgmental third in this audio threesome. Chris, what have you got for us this episode?
Okay, so for my first topic, I'm going back to one of our well-worn wells of information, and crazy Cold War antics.
Oh, we love them.
Oh, we do. And so did the CIA. So here's how they spent $20 million in the 60s on cats. Obviously, cast your mind back to... I say cast your mind back as if you were there. We're both under 30. We were both born after the Cold War ended. Imagine, if you will, you could cast your mind back to the 60s. Obviously, you've got the Americans and the Soviets, just sort of like one of those weird high school things where, everyone, they both hate each other, but they both won't admit they hate each other, so they both have to pretend to be friends. And they're trying to spy on each other. There were some famous Soviet cases where they put like a radio transmitter inside a wooden seal. Like, not as in like the animal, as in like, as in the seal of the United States, and they gave it as a gift. And the Americans decided to counter with Operation Acoustic Kitty. Now, some operation names or whatever, they're sort of abstract or completely unrelated, Whereas Acoustic Kitty was exactly what it sounds like. They had a plan to use cats to spy on the Russians. They only ever went through the trial phase. But what they did is they got a cat. Basically, they surgically implanted a microphone into the cat's ears and a radio transmitter in its head, and turned it into a walk-in eavesdropping device. And then they had this plan, like drop them off outside the Kremlin, walk around, maybe pick up something interesting. Yeah?
One, obviously modern microphones can be incredibly small. You can get microphones that fit on the top of the pin. Are we talking like big, like 60s broadcasting mics that sort of go like, woo?
I'd like to assume not. I'd like to assume they
right, okay, so
bit through.
Okay, it wasn't like poking out the side of the cat, and it was sort of, like when a snake eats something odd shaped, and you can see the outline of it.
Yeah.
And secondly, okay, cats wander around; they might pick up something. Mm-hmm. Is it likely to wander into the inner sanctum of the Kremlin and?
Depends whether or not Khrushchev was a cat person, I guess.
What they're going to get is a bunch of passing Russians going the Russian for, here, kitty, kitty, kitty.
Yeah. That would probably be an improvement on what the program actually picked up.
Can I guess what happened? That the cat immediately threw it up in a hairball, and all they got was like,
no. So for the first trial mission, they decided to obviously try and use it on home soil before they went and airlifted a bunch of cats to Russia. So they did it in Washington, at the Soviet embassy. So there's a park apparently outside the embassy, and there were two workers or whatever would go out and sit there on the breaks and stuff. So what they did was they released the cat, from across the road in the hope that it would go to the park. Immediately, it was hit by a taxi and died. And that was it. That was the end of the program.
That was it?
Yeah. The equipment was...
God, that one taxi driver might have changed the course of history. Just like...
The thing is, apparently I don't know if that was the only reason, but it said, basically, the difficulty of training the cats to behave was declared to be a total loss.
I mean, that's remarkable for the Cold War, when they'd basically, give quite a lot of serious attention to much, much weirder stuff.
I think they realised that, A, it died, and B, I think, it's like when you try and get a cat to do something, you're just going to get passive-aggressive, ball-licking antics, and that would be about it. What you were saying about, is it going to wander anywhere that's actually going to pick up anything useful? So then the CIA moved on to pigeons.
Better. I would say that's a better option.
Yeah, so they put little receivers in them, and then they could...
all they heard was, coo, coo.
They tried loads of these different animals. Dolphins.
Unlikely to swim all the way up to Moscow, though.
Yeah, probably like the fact that Moscow's like 1,000 miles inland.
Assuming, these days they could probably do it on like a fly or something, what would be your go-to spy animal or spy creature of choice?
Well, see, a fly is liable to get swatted. I'd go with a bee, because if it was a wasp, everyone would just, run away. Whereas now bees have a pretty good reputation, so people will probably be like, oh, leave the bee alone. Let the bee go about being a bee.
Yeah, bees definitely won the PR war between them and the wasps.
Exactly. If people were having meetings at night, a moth, because it would just fly in, just repeatedly whack into the light bulb, which is probably in the middle of the room. As long as you could put up with listening to like dink, 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 like over the entire recording, you'd probably get something quite useful.
Yeah, you could edit it out. If I can get rid of the son of a washing machine off this podcast, they can do that.
Exactly.
I'd go elephant, because no one would mention it.
Boo.
So, did they try any other animals after dolphins, or do they go, this has got silly now?
Dolphins they used, and they then employed to find mines and stuff. Sea mines, not land mines, because that wouldn't make any sense.
Well, they'd get one.
The problem is, a lot of it's still classified, so it appears there were trials of some using electric brain stimulation to guide dogs remotely. Most of it's still classified, so nobody's entirely sure. I think it was World War II where the Americans tried to use bats. They had an idea to use bats and then put incendiary bombs on bats. And then the idea is they'd drop them over Japan and they'd go and nestle in like nooks and crannies and all the old wooden buildings. But if I recall, it went horrendously wrong and they ended up just nesting inside the army base that they were supposed to have been released from. Airbase in New Mexico was set on fire when the bat armed sorry, this is just an amazing sentence. Armed bats were accidentally released.
Release the armed bats.
And then they roosted under a fuel tank and incinerated the test range. I just don't understand why you'd... the base in question was in New Mexico, which, obviously, during World War II, there was no fighting in America. So they were thousands of miles from their target, and someone was like, yeah, let's give them live bombs.
You got to test it somewhere.
Just...
Well, on the ships on the way, going, right, we've got a 3-week voyage. You've got 3 weeks to figure it out.
Yeah.
Batman.
That's crazy. But anyway, then they just invented the nuclear bomb instead, and that was that.
Yeah, it was staring him right in the face. Should we just do this, but without using animals? Well, that's no fun. Yeah, let's just get this thing over with.
I like how, nuclear bomb was their second option. Bat bomb was the first.
The sort of weary sigh of resignation, like, gentlemen, the bat bomb has failed. Right, let's go with the nuke. Oh, do we have to?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, but I wanted the bat bomb to work. So for my first topic, I will start off with a question, as I almost always do. Chris, have you ever thought about where you might want to be buried? Or if you want to be buried at all, cremated, Greek pyre, Viking longship, set ablaze?
Yeah, I have a weird feeling we spoke about this in a previous episode.
Wouldn't surprise me.
We've been doing this for just over a year. It's natural. We're recycling topics now. No, because I think I said that I want to be on like a Greek pyre so that if I'm not quite dead, I can roll off screaming in agony and then die on the side.
Oh yeah, because I'd be lamenting and sort of pulling the chariot round and round and round whoever slew you.
Exactly.
Classic. Well, one place, if you did want to be buried, pretty much ignoring your answer. The question was meaningless. If you did want to be buried, if you change your mind, if you don't want the Greek pyre, it's a lot of faff. You might not be able to find the coins. If you did want to be buried, the one place you couldn't, well, not the one of many places, like, you can't do it at my house. I've not got any room. One place you couldn't pick would be the town of Longyearbyen in Norway.
Why is that?
Thank you for asking. You're making the format so much easier.
I was imagining you just say, and that's that. Next topic.
Because it's forbidden to be buried there. Well, their cemetery closed over 70 years ago because it's so cold there that the bodies don't decompose. Normally too much of a problem, you'd think just expand the cemetery. But within the existing and now closed cemetery are bodies from 1917 rife with influenza. So you can't disturb it and risk it thawing it out and making the virus sort of...
releasing a plague, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially a decent setup to a sort of apocalypse film. Someone wants to save a bit of money on the funeral, dig a body up and nick one of the graves, only to release, probably zombies. Sort of Norwegian zombies. The scariest zombies of them all.
Zombies that can ski.
Seem to have figured out economics.
The last thing we want is...
fiscally irresponsible zombies.
Vikings, obviously.
Oh yeah, Viking zombies would be much scarier than fiscally responsible zombies. I didn't know why we didn't go straight to that.
Fiscally responsible Viking zombies.
Yeah, the sort of best and worst of both worlds. And the residents of Longyearbyen, if they do, not if, when they die, are either airlifted.
You sounded a bit unsure. If they die.
Well, I
Some
assume
of them are immortal.
but are very casual about it. They don't want to make a fuss. They
Yeah.
just want to tend to closed graveyards. But, obviously people still live there, but they're either airlifted or sort of quite unceremoniously driven. Usually a hearse, but that's for sort of urban areas. But sort of strapping up a coffin inside like a sort of, a four-wheel drive with a plough on the front that can tackle the sort of icy Norwegian road seems somehow less dignified. I don't know why. I suppose it doesn't matter, does it? You're dead.
You get strangely, precious about what happens to our corpse. I don't really care what happens to mine. Make a puppet out of it.
I was just about to say the exact same
Just a
thing.
weird marionette.
I mean, at least, if I agree to that too, it means that, whichever one of us goes first, inevitably me, with the life I've lived, and continue to live, and plan to live in the future, you can use me as a puppet, but I suppose if it's an audio medium, then you could just do that anyway. You don't need me physically there going, on this week, I'm going to talk about blah, blah, blah.
It doesn't sound like Chris.
No, it's a total impression of me.
Did you see that thing, though? In America, somebody donated their mum's body to science. I think she died of Alzheimer's or something. So, wanted her to, a body to be used for brain research or whatever. Apparently, he did tick a box or whatever that explicitly said no blowing it up. And then whoever was in charge of handling the corpse sent it off to the US military, and they used it to test bombs on. And he found out that his mum's corpse was exploded across a test range in Nevada.
To test ballistics and what happens?
Yeah, I think they're
what it does to
testing the
bodies.
effect of...
What are they? I haven't read about inventing a new bullet. Why do we still need to? Surely we know by now what a bullet does to.
Wanting to know what their new bomb does to a body.
Maybe they've finally got the bats working again.
Yeah.
Is there anything you don't want your body to be used for? Other than the obvious.
Necrophilia.
Yeah, that was the obvious.
I thought I'd say it anyway.
Right. You don't want anyone diddling you.
Which again is, I assume I'm not going to mind either way. But still, the thought of that seems a bit weird. That's probably about it, really. I'm staking a lot here on the idea that, in some cultures they think, what happened to your physical body actually affects, your afterlife. If you have your eyes plucked out in life, then whatever, or your corpse has its eyes plucked out, then you'll spend eternity with no eyes. So I am banking on that not being true. Because
if you're killed by a shark, that's a horrible afterlife.
Just dragging your half a corpse round. Basically just an arm.
Interesting that you put your consciousness in your arm.
I was just thinking the only bit that wouldn't be, if a shark was eating you, I feel like an arm's the most likely thing to float off.
But I'd then say that the body left behind is the rest of the body without the arm.
Well, yeah, but then the body that's left behind would be in the shark's digestive tract. I don't know how it works if you get bisected. Which half goes carries on for eternity and which half doesn't.
That would suck being an arm.
And obviously, bodies degrade over time anyway. So when's the cut-off point when they're right, any damage done to the body doesn't matter anymore? I just mean, if you get buried in pristine condition, it's only a matter of time till you're not, unless you get mummified. Well, obviously the Egyptians got around that by mummifying, didn't they? And even then, pristine's a stretch, considering you pull your brains out your nose and stick all your internal organs in a jar.
Yeah, if you're stuck in the jar as your kidney going, they're not even turning me the right way round. Or if you died by a sort of oversized blender? Like, would you just be a sort of conscious liquid?
Who has died by an oversized blender? Ever?
What, you want me to name names?
I'm just saying, I bet you can't think of a single situation where there's an oversized blender.
What if someone was testing, like those big fans that they do for, like, wind tunnels?
Oh, yeah.
And during the manufacturing process, someone fell into one of the big fans.
Okay. Alright. I'll give you that.
So, is that guy just Conscious Paste?
Ew. That sounds like a band name, actually. Conscious Paste.
Yeah, one of the best grunge bands to come out of Birmingham.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. I'm not a theologian.
No. If someone, like, you're on your deathbed, and someone says, I've always wanted to try cannibalism, can I eat you after you're dead? Would you have a problem being eaten?
I'd be like, no, fuck off, and I hate the fact that I've spent my life knowing you, you fucking weirdo.
It's alright, you can say Chris by name.
But if we were like stranded in the middle of nowhere and I was dying and then I died and the next person ate me or whatever, then yeah, fair enough.
So it's only for survival?
Yeah. Just the idea of somebody being like, I want to eat human flesh, I'd be like, dude, you're just weird. I don't want to ever make you happy. It's just pettiness, really.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think for me it'd come down to how they were planning to cook me. What
would be acceptable and what wouldn't?
I don't want to be a soup, in case, because then I'd be blended, and I don't want my consciousness to be in a blender. So that's the end of my first topic, Chris. What have you got for your second?
Well, having trod a well-worn path to the Cold War and CIA antics, now I'm going to go into something we are deeply unqualified to speak about, the female orgasm.
I mean, the myth of the female orgasm, obviously.
Obviously. No. So, obviously, nowadays, sex toys and whatnot, so I say big business, I don't actually have any numbers to corroborate that, but the fact that I've seen adverts on TV, on normal TV now, for like websites that sell that stuff, suggests that it's moved into the mainstream somewhat. But the vibrator was actually invented by Victorian doctors, because obviously back in the day being a doctor was just sort of like...
just winging it every day.
I can only assume, yeah, I mean, they must have had some training, but a lot of the stuff is like, how did you come up with that? It must have just been a shrug and be like, yeah.
I mean, I guess your job was a bit easier when every product contained morphine.
That is true. Morphine or cocaine or whatever.
Or both, yeah. So they probably only needed to do amputations.
Amputations, though, were done by surgeons, and surgeons weren't doctors. Once they finish training, they become Mr. again, don't they? They go from Mr. to Doctor, and then back to Mr. They were basically, again, just going back to the shrug your shoulders and way of dealing with science, and, well, especially the female body. Basically, there was a condition called hysteria, which was basically anything. You know, it was basically just, do you have anxiety, irritability? Basically anything. They were just like, you have hysteria. Basically, the way that doctors then decided to treat that was to do a pelvic massage, performed manually, until the patient reached a hysterical paroxysm, which basically was an orgasm. So basically, doctors fingered people's misses for science.
Yep.
But then they got bored of doing that. It was a very, there's only so many women you can finger bang in a day when you're a well-to-do Victorian doctor. So they invented a labour-saving device, and eventually they came up, well, after a lot of trial and error, they tried wind-up ones, steam-powered ones, and eventually electricity came along and they invented the electric vibrator.
Sorry, steam-powered ones.
They tried the steam-powered steampunk dildo. Well, apparently when they eventually got round to the electric one, the generator needed was the size of a fridge, so there was just a special room in the doctor's office, the vibrator room.
Right, okay, you might feel a slight sensation. I'm just going to turn the machine on now.
Yeah. It was a medical device, because obviously the idea of sex being something for people to enjoy. No. Lie back and think of England.
Well, yeah, I think certainly not for women to enjoy.
Yeah, exactly.
But so, I mean, would you not, let's say you're a Victorian woman and not a wealthy one, so you have very little agency, you'd be pretty hysterical, like, in the actual sense of the word, not the sort of general medical sense, if you were, like, married off to a man you didn't really love who had never given you an orgasm.
Mm-hmm. Then Dr. What's-Its with his steam-powered...
Stay still, my dear.
Jackhammer. More coal.
Yeah, just a dude stood behind.
I've seen it have a steam whistle like a old-timey tree.
Yeah. There was also a condition called roving womb, which was hypothesized to be the source of the sort of the woman's madness or hysteria. That's all in, heavy quotation marks, by the way, of just the womb being a sort of roving part of the body that just went about causing women to be hysterical.
I just love...
Just got a roving womb.
Yeah. Well, they came up with these ideas, and they must have just done, like, absolutely no... There was like, no experiment to prove this. The womb's moved. How do you know? Well, obviously, it just has. Well, where is it?
It's causing madness.
The foot? Yeah. Must be in her foot. Shall we have a look at her foot? No. Just trust me. It's in the foot. We'll get it back.
Yeah, but turn her on her head and strap her up to this fucking like whale oil powered dildo.
It's just crazy. Weird times, wasn't it? And then, like you say, they're just like, oh, what shall we prescribe? Well, actually, to be fair, going to the doctor's office must have been a right lark, because, it's like, right, feeling a bit ill. Okay, well, what do you want? I can either prescribe you cocaine if you want to get a bit of a buzz, some morphine if you want to chill out a bit, or I can just
finger blast you.
Yeah.
Oh, you went bang rather than blast. An interesting difference between us. I do not know, nor do I want to know what that says about our respective medical qualifications, shall we say.
Medical onomatopoeias. Also, what's even weirder is the fact that I can't help but think that during this entire thing, nobody, like I say, Mrs. Mackenzie's come into the doctor's, Dr. Gideon's office. She's hitched up her, like, ridiculously billowy skirt.
14 pairs of bloomers.
Sat on the machine or whatever. And during all of this, neither of them will have taken their hats off.
Oh no, they're not savages.
It's like...
Madam, your riding gloves have come perilously close to displaying your wrists. I'll shove this up your fanny.
We wouldn't want this to become obscene now, would we?
Lady Roberts, your ankles are bare. Now let me fucking plough you with this Black & Decker. Also, do you think if, after years of sort of orgasmless marriage, you'd find yourself going to the doctors a bit more and feel at home going,
yeah,
are you alright? You've been to the doctor like 12 times this week. Like, yeah, no, I'm good. Well, I'm not good because I've got to go to the doctor.
Yeah, terrible. Oh. Apparently, I was saying, like, it's strictly a medical device.
Oh, yeah, strictly.
But eventually they started advertising it for, as it got to, like, the 20th century and you could use a smaller generator. They started advertising for, like, home use and stuff. But apparently, like, the adverts were, they were still pretended it was medical only. But then, like, some of the, the adjectives in the adverts would be, like, throbbing and, revitalise your youth and stuff like that. And all things that were clearly suggesting what it was for.
Yeah.
Apparently, the reason why it then came out of use in medical use or whatever was because in the late 1920s, people just started making porn films because obviously, the first thing you do when you invent a camera was porn. Yeah, by the 1920s, they'd actually started putting vibrators in some of these early porn films, and then the doctors kind of had to admit that maybe it wasn't just hysteria that Miss Miggs was coming in to see.
So there should be, if there isn't already, a sort of a period drama porn.
Almost certainly, some Downton Abbey.
Well, I don't know, I've never seen it. I don't remember, Lady Chatterworth or whatever getting her undercarriage smashed in. But
I'm just trying to think what the porn parody of Downton Abbey would be called.
Downton Abbey penis. No, I've got nothing.
We just have to admit Downton Abbey is unpornable.
Porn-proof. So, listeners, tweet at Cooking with Grief, no G on cooking, your alternate Downton Abbey porno parody titles, please.
Okay, so on that smutty note, over to you for our final topic.
Okay, so from medical deviancy to life goals. Chris, I'll ask you, do you let setbacks hold you back from the things you want to achieve?
No. Yes, maybe. Sometimes.
I'm guessing indecision is one of your problems. Well, I want to tell you the story of a man who let almost nothing hold him back from just living his best life. I'm going to tell you about a man called Götz von Berlichingen, which I probably pronounced wrong, but I'm going to press on, who lived from 1480 to 1562. He was a knight of fortune in that he wasn't loyal to any one particular order or king, and just he was a sort of soldier for hire. And during a siege, he had his arm shot off by a cannon. Now, I probably would have called it quits after the whole, getting your arm shot off by a cannon thing. I have sneezed before and thrown out my back, so I'm definitely weaker. But he thought, no, this is an opportunity to just crack on with being a knight, and he commissioned a new iron hand, which he could control with a series of clock mechanisms to grip.
Sounds intricate.
Yeah, pretty advanced technology, and it was sturdy enough that he could still hold a shield in it, and he learned to use his other hand to hold a sword. But also it was delicate enough that he could hold a quill in it and still write fine. And he continued to be a knight, and a fairly successful sort of knight for hire, for another 40 years after getting his hand shot off by a cannon.
Certainly, just go back a second. So, it was delicate enough to hold a quill. That's a lot of effort going into just avoiding to learn how to write left-handed.
Yeah,
I broke my wrist when I was a kid, and I just had to write left-handed for a few months. You just get on with it. It wasn't that bad.
Yeah, but definitely going the extra mile for your penmanship. So yes, we continued to be a knight for another 40 years, which, I mean, just on the sort of age expectancy alone is pretty good, especially the fact that, you didn't get gangrene from having your arm shot off by a cannon. But as well as being a sort of a soldier for hire, he was apparently quite a good poet, and with the iron hand, well, I mean, that might be fanciful, he might have just learned to use his other hand to write, but he earned the title of warrior poet because apparently he was as accomplished as a poet as he was on the battlefield. He's the man I want to be.
He lost an arm writing poetry as well. Is that what that means?
Maybe. I think it would be a bit like like Tolkien was apparently a really bad soldier in the World War because he was always writing down stories about fucking little people with hairy feet. Going, will you concentrate on the battle? Sorry. And yeah, he lived a good life, sort of being a soldier, until he once punched a nobleman at a banquet and got outlawed by the Holy Roman Empire.
Oh dear. Which arm did he use? Which hand did he use to punch him with? The metal one or the fleshy one?
I mean, I think for the sake of the anecdote, let's say metal one.
Okay, good.
I'm imagining it sort of. It might be a bit of a niche reference, but do you remember the sort of power fist in Fallout?
Oh yes.
The sort of a nice mechanical ka-junk. So I imagine he took the nobleman's head clean off with it. Yeah. Just punched it straight off his body.
Yeah. Sounds bad.
So we went on the run from the Holy Roman Empire, which are pretty bad guys to run away from when they span the whole of. Yeah, you can go quite a long way. He got captured, but his friends managed to bribe him out of trouble. At which point, I'm guessing mostly out of spite, he kidnapped a bishop and went back on the run.
Did he need to kidnap the bishop?
No, he's just making life harder for himself, isn't he? Skinnier Teeth is he was, sort of well enough known that, his friends can go, look, can we just get him, he won't be any trouble. And he goes, no, I won't be any trouble. And then immediately gets himself into trouble by kidnapping a bishop.
Well, maybe this is all part of his plan, because previously he could only, he's trying to escape from the Holy Roman Empire, and obviously he could only just move 2 squares forward and 1 to the left or the right, whereas now he can move diagonally as well.
What, he essentially used the bishop in his getaway vehicle.
Yeah, he rode the bishop diagonally across the Alps.
Whereas the pawns are just going, we can't keep up with him. We'll have to send some kind of royalty after him.
So it's just got a weird image now of just on
a bishop's back going...
On the bishop's back with one mechanical arm, which he's done all the clockwork things to make the middle finger stick up. Just pointing to this bishop, like, onwards.
Steed. my name's Kevin. Shut up, Steed. So after all this sort of chess-based fugitiveness, he got caught, and basically, instead of going to prison, he was allowed to buy a castle with all the money he'd attained from being a soldier of fortune. So
he could move horizontally and vertically.
Yeah, it wasn't a castle, it was a rook, that was it, yeah. He's got the best of both worlds. He's a knight on top of a bishop inside a rook. He's basically outsourced the queen. And then inside his rook, on top of his bishop, he was essentially sort of on you know, the equivalent of house arrest, basically. And by all accounts, spent the rest of his days just drunk and writing poetry.
Nice.
Good retirement to have. And as a little sort of fun fact, as a coder, his poetry contains the first ever known usage of the phrase "lick my arse."
So we can assume he was quite bitter whilst he was writing this poetry. It's drunken poetry written under house arrest.
Oh yeah, it was like sort of Bukowski of the 1400s.
Is there a context for that line, or was that the whole poem?
No, I will read you the stanza of the poem that first. So the phrase "lick my arse" first comes from. It says, "The noise of birds, soft and ripe as morning's gentle kiss. I summoned spirits by night, demons settle upon my brow by day. Lick my arse."
It's like he just gives up on the final line.
I mean, there's probably a reason we don't study him at GCSE going, here is, you know, your introduction to poetry. Basically, he's saying that, you know, he's lying in bed hungover, the birds are making a racket outside, and he's telling them to lick his arse. It's not like, what did the poet mean by this? I think he wants to kill the birds. You don't need a fucking degree in English to work that one out. He's just rat-faced. You know, what a life.
That is quite a life.
What a chess-based life.
This is like, yeah, the pettiness of just kidnapping the bishop. It's like, right, don't get in trouble. Right, okay.
Yoink.
Guess what, lads? Got a bishop.
What? Like, he phones them up because, I don't know, apparently his metal hand also is like Bluetooth enabled. He goes, lads, I got wasted last night. It's basically the Hangover trilogy.
Yes.
Just sort of...
With a bishop instead of Mike Tyson.
I very much see the two as, you know, sort of
one and the same.
Of their time.
Yeah. What's he called?
Guts von Berlichingen.
Nice. What a name. New patron of this podcast. I mean,
yes.
Not that we have anything in common with him. Like, I mean, you can write. I'm borderline illiterate. No, that's not true. For the record, in case anybody important listens to this, I can write.
I mean, the equivalent would be us going to a business meeting about this podcast, punching an executive in the face, going on the run, and then stealing a vicar? I don't know.
Oh, don't aim so low. You're going for a higher member of the clergy. Are we settling with a vicar?
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Go big or go home.
Fuck it, we're going Pope. And that brings us to the end of the 33rd instalment of Cooking with Grief. We've now done as many episodes of this as years that Jesus lived, by all accounts, so let he who is without sin thank the listener for letting him in their ears for a bit, and add that he hopes they'll join him next time, when he'll have 4 brand new topics for them. I, however, am a towering slag pile of sin, so I will simply say... goodbye.
That was an oddly biblical outro. Yes, goodbye. And I hope that episode 34 goes ahead and we haven't been crucified, literally or metaphorically. Twitter can be a cruel place.
But speaking of which, you should follow us at Cooking with Grief with no G on cooking.
Smooth as ever.
Thanks very much.
Maybe we could say, we'll be crucified and then we'll come back in a week. And then we'll go again. And then people will just argue about us for the next 2,000 episodes. Unlikely, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fairly slim Bible. What would be the Cooking with Grief 10 Commandments?
Don't be a dick.
Okay.
Just one.
Just one.
Catch all.
Yep.
Oh, and also, whenever the opportunity to say salsa comes up, take it.
Yeah, sure. I was going to go with eat flaming hot Monster Munch.
Yes, that would be our communion, would be Monster Munch washed down with dandelion and burdock.
I mean, we're just kneeling in front of another grown-up and they just pop a
Monster
Munch in your mouth. I mean, it's a religion I can get behind.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you for listening.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Cooking with Grief. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to recommend it to a friend. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email cookingwithgrief@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter. That's @cookingwithgrief. If you'd like to hear more episodes, then please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you've got the time, then it'd be great if you could leave us a review on iTunes. Thank you.
Welcome everybody to the Pot Askew podcast. I am...
Whoa, dude. This is our promo, not the show. I'm Rico.
Oops, my bad. I'm CJ. We're the hosts of the Pot Askew podcast.
We are fans of pretty much anything and everything pop culture, including movies, TV shows, books, video games, comics, music, and of course, Kevin Smith. Now, while we do keep our fingers on the pulse of Silent Bob, he certainly doesn't need our help in promoting him.
You got that right. We do our own thing, with inspiration from the man and his mantra of why not. We've got stories from celebrities we've interviewed, theories of our own for certain movies, and we usually have a great debate on almost anything.
We also do commentaries on movies. Sometimes we ask our fans what they want to watch with us. So, if you love the timbre of our vocal cords and you want to watch a movie at the same time, give us a listen.
Stay tuned every Monday. There's always something new. And if you've been good this year, we may even give you some bonus episodes from time to time.
So be good, subscribe, and enjoy Pot Askew, proud members of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network.